Hi, I'm Curious Vedanth, and welcome to season 3 of my podcast. Today, my guest is Gauri Maulekhi, who is a trustee of People for Animals or PFA and is the advisor to Srimati Maneka Sanjay Gandhi. Gauri has conducted many training programs for police, judges, and other officers. In my previous episode, we learned about the functions of the government, example, the legislature, executive, and the judiciary. Today, we will talk about how the executive arm functions with Gauri. Hi, Gauri. Welcome to my show.
Hi, Vedant. I'm so excited to be on your show.
Even I'm very excited for this. I'm very excited.
Just like you're curious, Vedant, I'm excited, Gauri. So, what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about how the executive arm of the government works.
Mm-hmm.
India is a huge country with over 1.2 billion people. How does the government make sure that all the people know and follow the law?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. So, there are so many laws in India about different things, how to drive vehicles on the road, how to register houses, what to do with properties, how to run banks, how to look after animals. There's just so many laws. So, for everything, all the laws are put up on the websites of all government departments. And it is the duty of every citizen to actually look up the law and to learn about it so that every citizen can follow the law wherever he is about everything. There's a law in India on everything, and it's on the websites of the government offices. You can also buy books. There are lots of legal books available, which one can read up if you want to know deeper into the law.
So you can even buy the Constitution of India.
Oh, yes, you can buy a copy of the Constitution of India. And it's one of the world's best written, longest constitution. And it's a pleasure to read it. And it makes you feel, that way back in, 60 years ago, 70, 80 years ago, they could envision such a wonderful, glorious country. And they've written such wonderful provisions in the Constitution. Anybody can buy a copy. I have several copies of the Constitution of India. You should read it.
So you said that the law of India is put up on like the different government websites. But then before internet came, before the websites came, how did the people read the law?
Okay, in that case, there were printed copies of every notification and every act that was passed by the legislature. There were printed copies that were available everywhere in shops. In every district in the country has courts, and there you have these booksellers who could sell those books. And some very important, prominent laws, the government only makes them into small little pamphlets or handouts and makes sure that the public comes to know about it. There's some that they want to propagate even more through television and radios. So that's why we watch the news, so that we come to know what are the new laws that are passed, if at all, something interesting that's come up, some decisions taken on policy. So the government proactively also tries to tell the citizens what laws are made through various mediums. So government has its own publicity department. That department makes sure that every citizen has access to, new laws that are made.
In Singapore, the laws are very interesting. I mean, like, there's this one law where you cannot chew gum.
Well, it has some environmental impacts. I'm sure there's logic to everything. Sometimes there are laws that one doesn't instinctively understand, but there is a logic to it, and in keeping with the times. Maybe there's some environmental concerns about chewing gum. But for instance, when in 1960, the Indian Parliament came up with the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, a lot of people thought that was crazy. Why protect animals? Because animals are not so important. But suddenly, slowly, we understood that how important this law is and how important it is to protect animals around us. Um, Something that may not make immediate sense to you might have deeper meanings. So let's find out a little more about it.
So, who are the people who form the executive arm of the government?
So the executive arm is basically full of officers, bureaucrats, you can say, who execute the laws, the policies that are passed by the legislature. So the legislature is the parliament or the state assembly. And they have all these very well educated officers who work in the bureaucracy, and they frame the structure in which the law has to be implemented. For instance, your school principal, she makes the decision on anything, and then all the teachers decide how to implement that decision in the classes with you children. If the principal says, okay, now from tomorrow we're going to start teaching about the planet earth, in a deeper sense, so how will the teachers will now make chapters on it and try to execute that decision, and they become the executive. So you just have to look at the structure of the Indian administrative system juxtaposed to your school administration system. So a lot of secretaries or district magistrates and directors and IFS and IPS officers, IAS officers, they're all the executive arm. They are the ones who implement the decisions taken by the parliament of the country.
Well, if they do everything, what does the Prime Minister do?
The Prime Minister is the head of state. He has to, head the parliament of the country, and he leads all the decisions that are taken. He's also the head of the cabinet. So all the main decisions that are taken by the parliament first have to be run through by the cabinet and the prime minister, and only once they approve it that the parliament even comes to vote on it. So he takes big decisions. So for instance, there's a pandemic going on, so the prime minister decides that the COVID warriors, the doctors will get the vaccines first. But how to implement it, how many hospitals will open, how many nurses and doctors would be available, that will be decided by the executive. The prime minister and the parliament, they're there to make big, broad decisions. But how those decisions turn out to be implemented on the ground is the work of the officers.
So, what is the cabinet?
So, cabinet is a group of those members of parliament who have been given the charge of one particular ministry. They're senior members of the parliament, very senior politicians who are the heads of certain departments. For instance, health minister will be a member of the cabinet. Finance minister, defense minister, animal husbandry minister, all of these different department ministers form the cabinet. They together decide and vote on most of the large policy decisions that the cabinet has to pass.
What are the ministries and how are they run?
Running a country is a very serious business. There are lots of people who have all kinds of needs and requirements, and it takes a lot of thinking and specialized knowledge to run a country this size. Hence, for every subject, there is a specialized ministry. They specialize on that subject. For instance, health ministry has a health minister, and under him is a health secretary and additional and joint and deputy secretaries, etc., who all specialize in that health department. They implement only the policies and the decisions that are based on health. Then there's another subject, for instance, finance. So the finance minister and his officers, team of officers, they are the experts on finance. They will do, their subject is finance, and it's written in our constitution whose subject is what and what they're going to do under that. For instance, urban development ministry, they will decide where the roads will go, where how buildings can be made, the policies on how urbanization has to happen. The animal husbandry ministry will decide how animals are to be treated, how can they be housed, how can they be kept. So sometimes they take decisions for one purpose or the other, but that's their subject. The Ministry of Environment and Forest is supposed to take all the decisions to protect the environment and forest. Their minister and their group of officers, secretary, undersecretary, deputy secretary, all of them, they sit and take all the policy decisions, and then they tell the state governments to implement it like that. And finally, they work out all the rules, they work out all the systems, they work out all the schemes, because in order to do everything, you require money also. So the ministry will, or the department will basically work out all the schemes and ensure that, everybody has the resources to implement the decision.
So in the ministries, you said that there's the minister, the head, and then the different people who are the best at it. Are there also other people who help?
Oh, yes. It's now a growing practice that stakeholders or experts in their subject matters are also invited in a lot of such decision making processes. I'll give you an interesting example. For instance, the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, it was made in 1960 and is now due for revision, a sort of an amendment. Because the penalty was too low. It was just rupees 50, and nobody liked it anymore because the law became meaningless with 50 rupees. So the government has decided to change that. But they're not deciding it only by themselves. They have extended invitation to a lot of subject matter experts, and they're asking them for opinion also. And I've also got an invitation, and I'm also going to give my opinion and suggestions on it, how the act can be made stronger and better. So it's not just officers of the government, but also other subject matter experts that who are called from time to time to give their opinion. And I think it's a very healthy practice. It happens in all ministries. For instance, even during the pandemic, a lot of doctors who have their own private hospitals have been asked to come and help the government make better policies. So um, every citizen may get an opportunity to contribute towards good governance.
Congrats on getting invited. I hope you succeed in increasing the penalty.
Thank you, Vedant. It is much needed, and I hope that it happens too.
I know that you create awareness among the different officers about animal, wildlife, and environmental issues. How do you do that?
Well, first we have to convince the department heads that this is, animals, environment, it's all important, because sometimes police thinks that only catching thieves is important and nothing else is important. But we have to convince their higher officers that preventing cruelty to animals and taking action in cases where animals are abused is also important. And then they instruct the officers, under them to encourage such knowledge sharing. And then we get in touch with every state police, and we organize workshops. We interact with the officers who are directly taking action on the ground against cruelty, and we give them all the resources, we give them all the knowledge which helps them in saving more lives. So it's very interesting actually, because these workshops, these sessions help us also to learn what are the practical problems that the officers face on the ground level, and we are together able to solve so much of that, and so many animals get saved.
You also train judges. Isn't it very scary to train like judges?
Oh, yes, it's very scary. First time I was extremely scared, and I thought that they would ask very tough questions, and I would perhaps not be able to give all the right answers, but it was a very pleasant experience. And ever since then, we've been doing lots of workshops with judges in trial courts, and not only are they extremely bright, Indian judicial officers, but we have learned more and more that they want to do something nice. It's just that they lacked the resources and the assistance that people like me and people like your father can give to them. So we have been assisting a lot of magistrates in by holding workshops, by holding these sensitization sessions. Now I'm not so scared anymore, but still, we have a huge amount of respect for our judiciary, and we just hope that we give them all the right answers and all the right assistance in for them to take correct judgments in cruelty cases, especially when the victims can't speak for themselves.
Who are magistrates?
Magistrates are of two kinds. One is an executive magistrate, like a district magistrate or a district collector. He has a separate set of duties related to revenue, like collection of taxes, etc. And then there is a judicial magistrate who is basically about sits in a court. He is from the judicial wing of the government, and he hears cases and gives decisions in criminal and civil matters.
Who's the judge who says like guilty, you're sentenced to like this many years of jail, this many years of like labor and all of that?
No, okay. No, that's definitely a trial court judge who can be a magistrate at a district level court and can also be a high court judge. But yeah, definitely a trial court, that's what you're talking about, where the criminal matters are heard and the accused person may either be acquitted or sentenced as guilty.
Can a person also be sentenced to death?
Oh, yes. In very, very special but rare circumstances, when the nature of the crime is heinous and is rarest of the rare cases, then yes, death penalty is still an option in India. But it's not, it's just very few and far between. So, and it's only reserved for very, very heinous or rarest of the rare kind of crimes.
You also work to make new laws. What is the latest law that you are working on?
Well, that has to be the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, the amendment to it, which is to increase the rupees 50 penalty. It's just so, demoralizing to know that today in India, you can, kill animals, you can cram them up in cages for all of their lives in straight jackets, basically, or burn their little babies or starve them to death, or all kinds of cruel, heinous activities you can do. And you can get away with it by just paying a penalty of rupees 50 if you are convicted at all. So it really has no meaning left. The law is beautiful, but the penalty is not a deterrent anymore. And we wanted, for instance, if your teacher says in your class that, if you cheat during an exam, then she's going to ask you to be quiet for 2 minutes. That's the punishment you get. So is that going to prevent you from cheating? Well, you can be quiet for 10 minutes. That's no big deal. But something as light as that, 50 rupees has no meaning in today's day and age. And it requires that this act, which is a serious act, it deals with serious offenses, has a serious penalty also. So this is the law that we are working on. We have got various judgments from the Supreme Court, and now the government has agreed to change it, and let's hope it happens quickly.
And I also agree that 50 rupees is very less. It's like less than like how much you pay to go on one auto rickshaw ride.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, it costs more to go to court, to actually travel to court, than to pay the penalty. So it's just, but way back in 1960, the intention of the parliament was very good. And at that time, 50 rupees used to be a lot of money. But with time, money loses its value, and now 50 rupees means nothing. So we have to make the law updated. That's what we are working on.
And once again, I wish you your best to like increase the fine.
Thank you, Vedant. It's children like you that deserve a better, compassionate world, a compassionate India. And we are working today to make your tomorrow a nicer one, a kinder one.
Thank you. How did you get into doing what you do now? What did you want to be as a child?
So I did not decide what I would be as a when I grew up, but I did know that I want to do something more meaningful in life, something that made me truly happy, something that was not just about myself and was about something larger, although I couldn't put my finger on it. And I did a lot of things actually, but nothing gave me a lot of the kind of. I worked with children like you. I worked as a voiceover artist. I did loads of things, but finally, I stumbled upon animal welfare as my full time, 100% body, mind, and soul work. And it has given me so much happiness, I can't tell you. I joined People for Animals way back in 1994. And ever since then, it's only made me more and more certain that this was the purpose of my life. And that's how it gives a beautiful feeling after I've been able to help even one animal.
You know, that's a very great thing. And I've also joined People for Animals. I mean, I have.
Mhm. Welcome to the family. Young, curious members like you will make so much difference to this world, Vedant. We are so proud to have a member like you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me, Vedant.
Dear listeners, follow my Facebook page, Curious Vedanth, to get updates on my upcoming episodes. To listen at leisure on your phone and get notified about future episodes, subscribe by searching for Curious Vedanth wherever you get your podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also listen to my show on curiousvedanth.com. Thank you for listening to Curious Vedanth. And don't forget to rate and leave comments.